Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the February 25th Oklahoma City Planning Commission meeting and call the meeting to order. If you have pagers or cell phones, I would ask you to silence those at this time. If you are here on a case and you are not the applicant but wish to address us, there are sign-up sheets. They're outside the chamber doors on a table. Fill it in and give it to our secretary here, and we'd be happy to hear you. I'm going to take things a little bit out of order on the agenda today and go to item 1 and ask Russell if he will read a resolution for Kevin George, our Ward 3 Planning Commissioner until about a month ago. Kevin, if you and your wife would come up to the podium.
We hope this doesn't happen very often, but we are very grateful for Kevin's service over the years. So we have a resolution that commends that service, and I'm going to read it and, as I said, embarrass you. But we believe that it is an accurate assessment of who you are and what your service has been to the city. So, whereas Kevin George has served the citizens of this community as Ward 3 Planning Commissioner splendidly from January 23rd, 2001 to January 14th, 2010, and whereas Kevin George's fulfillment of his responsibilities was achieved with a heartfelt dedication to the well-being of the community, and whereas Kevin George brought notable skills of analysis and respect for facts to his decision-making, and whereas Kevin George played an important role in the adoption of improved landscape regulations, new zoning ordinance, new subdivision regulations, historic preservation guidelines, and the downtown design districts, and whereas during Kevin George's tenure, numerous comprehensive plan amendments were approved by the Planning Commission, including 4 sector plans, 6 corridor plans, 5 special area plans, and 1 neighborhood plan. And whereas Kevin George's expertise and knowledge of Ward 3 played an integral part in the adoption of the Southwest Sector Plan, and whereas Kevin George was involved in the adoption of numerous Planning Commission policies and guidelines, including mini-storage design guidelines, PUD sign policies, and design guidelines for residential garages, and whereas Kevin George consistently treated all individuals he encountered, whether citizens or staff, with respect and courtesy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Kevin George is hereby commended by the Planning Commission for his 9 years of service to the community as a member of this body.
Kevin, I don't know if you'd describe your tenure as long-serving or long-suffering, but I want to say that it's been a privilege to work with you over the past 9 years. I've enjoyed your intellect, your integrity, your dedication to what we do here, your love of the city, and I have learned a great deal by sitting beside you and here with you, and I hope our friendship continues well into the future. It's been a privilege. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Anyone else weigh in?
Just thank you, and thank you for all your level counsel. It's been great. Sorry to see you go.
Kevin, thank you, and appreciate the relationship. We'll share it.
Thank you. And I repeat everything that the chairman just said, Kevin. It has been a pleasure serving with you, and you're going to be missed.
Thank you, Bob.
Kevin, I appreciate you serving the citizens of Southwest Oklahoma City alongside myself, and I look forward to serving with Commissioner Irwin as well.
Kevin, I appreciate your friendship, your professionalism, and I hope we find another place for you in the city government.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that.
No good deed goes unpunished. Kevin, thank you so much for the time you've spent with us. I have really, really appreciated having your counsel on things, even when we didn't agree on things. I always knew that your decisions were well considered and, even-handed, and you've always been, very respectful of people who've come to appear before us, and I really appreciate that, and you will be missed.
Thank you very much.
Kevin, echo everybody else's sentiments. Thank you for the time that you served as chair, and appreciate your service. Wish you and your family the best in the future. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate that.
And we have a very small token of our appreciation here, which is a clock and a plaque that summarizes what everybody has been saying. And on behalf of staff, I would reiterate our appreciation. We really appreciate having commissioners that like to work with us and are amenable to our suggestions from time to time as well. So it's ironic that we give him a clock because Kevin is one of the most prompt commissioners. So we're very, very grateful.
Thank you.
We also have a copy of the resolution. Look at that and then give it back because we'll frame it.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks. And you know, every one of you, thanks very much. It's touching. The 9 years here have just been a great experience, working with city staff and the real planners that are down here. Learned so much from them about city planning, and you know, listening to all the things that have changed over the 9 years is really awesome to look at. This city has really gone forward and continues to go forward in a great way, and it's just really been neat to be a part of it. I will miss everybody for sure, you know, and the time down here. So, and you know, the council, the attorneys that represent, the engineers that are representing all do a great job. And they're, you know, even though they're on a certain side of a subject or an issue, they are looking out for the best sides of the city. So I want to thank them for everything they do as well. So anyway, thanks very much. This is an honor, and I appreciate everything. I will read it and hand it back before we leave. Thank you.
Godspeed, Kevin. Before we go any further, it's my privilege to introduce Buck Irwin to everybody. He is our new Ward 3 Planning Commissioner who takes his seat today. And we're looking forward, Buck, to working with you, a long and fruitful relationship here on the Planning Commission. Next order of business is approval of the February 11th minutes.
Move approval. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Cast your votes. And we need lights from, we need to give Buck a tutorial on the lights. There we go.
There we
Perfect.
go.
Thank you. Continuance requests?
We have 3 uncontested requests for continuance. Item 21 and 22 are deferred to March the 11th, and item 23 is deferred indefinitely.
Is there anyone here today who came to address us on items 21, 22, or 23?
Move the continuances.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the continuances. Cast your votes, and that's approved.
We have 3 new requests for continuances. Item 6, which is C6178, item 7, PUD 1403, are deferred to March the 25th, and item 15, PUD 1393, deferred to March the 11th.
Same question. Anyone here who came to address us on items 6, 7, or 15 this afternoon? You okay. The new information, as I understand it, is that the applicant has submitted a flood study, which we did not have before. That has been turned into the staff. The staff will evaluate it, and when they have their review completed and can report it to us, the item will be set for that date, which I'm assuming we're going to try for 2 weeks. Is that correct? Brian?
Yes, I talked to Deere probably Monday, and he was going to have a report to you by that Thursday. So I wanted to make sure that date before we asked for the continuance. He said he would have something to tell you on that date.
Okay, well, based on his report being available, we'll hear it on the 25th. Oh, excuse me, March 11th. Pardon me, I have that 25th date in my head. Any other discussion on items 6, 7, or 8, or 15, excuse me?
Move the continuances.
Second. Okay, cast your votes, and those continuances are approved. Any other continuance requests from the public?
Members of the Commission and staff, my name is Michael Laird, Suite 1800, 20 North Broadway, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73102. I'm here on behalf of Rolling Hills Manufactured Homes, who is the adjacent owner on item number 5 to the west, the PUD 1408, I believe it is. This morning, co-counsel with me sent a letter over to Mr. Chambliss requesting a 30-day extension of this hearing in order to give us time to get some additional information from the applicant regarding primarily the impact on the trailer park, which is owned by my client, which is immediately adjacent to the west of the land in question. Unfortunately, we were not able to come to an agreement with the applicant about the extension, hence we felt we should at least make a record of it and request it of you today.
What additional information do you need?
That's a good question. As I understand it, about 3 weeks ago, and by the way, other than having a chance to introduce myself to Mr. Thompson, who is the counsel for the applicant, I haven't had any discussions at all with anybody on the applicant side of the equation. I was just retained last week. But information was apparently volunteered by the applicant to our clients about 3 weeks ago, and that has not been forthcoming, I understand, in talking to representatives of my client. We've not been told it's not going to be here, and actually Mr. Thompson was good enough to give me 3 colored drawings here, which I just got a few minutes ago. But we're trying to figure out what the impact of this is going to be, not the extension of the landfill per se, but what the removal of the 35 feet of dirt is going to have on the occupants that are right up against it on the west side.
Do you actually go right up to is that property line to property line?
I believe it is. It shows on the yes, with the exception of a Cross Point Drive, which borders the property to the west. That's the only buffer in between the land to be affected by this application and our client's property.
Is this not the same kind of operation that's going to go on, that's been going on for the past couple of 3 or 4 years with the property that's adjacent to the trailer park right now?
I think I can answer. I'm Robert Thompson, attorney for the applicant, and the answer to that is yes. This is the 4th in a series of PUDs for soil bore that have been brought for it probably in the last 10 to 12 years to provide soil that is mandated for the lawful operation of the landfill immediately south of this tract. And immediately south of the tract that's the subject of today's PUD, there is a PUD 970, which is immediately adjacent to the trailer park without the separation of the street. So this is editorializing, but from our point of view, it's not going to have any greater impact than already exists, because there's actually more footage running north and south adjacent from the prior approved PUD than there will be from this one.
In fairness to Mr. Thompson and his client, he's absolutely correct. And by the way, technically, my client is not objecting to the application per se, which is we tried to make clear from the letter today, and I want to make clear here. We just need to have more information about how the impacts are going to be. We've got residents, over 100 residents over there who are wondering what is going on and how this is going to impact them. And if we can get the additional information from the applicant, perhaps we can get to a point where if we have any suggestions, we can make them, but that at least it'll be a reasoned decision on our part what my client does or doesn't do.
Mr. Thompson, are you agreeable to the continuance?
I don't recall ever having been here and not being agreeable to a continuance prior to today. And let me tell you why today doesn't work. We've already continued this one time for 30 days in order for the parties to meet and try to gather information, work out differences. So this is actually would have been heard 30 days ago, but for our agreed continuance. And given the timetable for this hearing and then coming on the Planning Commission, and then some action that has to take place between us and OG&E and moving a line only after this gets approved, we're going to be running up against deadlines for the use of that soil that we're fearful we can't live with. Otherwise, I would easily and quickly grant this request. I didn't know about it, that it was actually being made. No, that's not true. I had a phone call that they wanted a request about 10 days ago. But about this morning was the first time I learned that they were formally requesting a request. And we told them then, same things I'm saying now, is that we're going to run against deadlines if we continue it again. We do want to continue to talk. We do want to continue to be good neighbors. But it's going to put us in a bind if we continue this today.
Mr. Thompson, what happened in the last 30 days? I mean, can you tell me anything about the last 30 days since January?
I know that representatives from both sides have been meeting. The focus of that has been ways to permanently solve the issues between those landowner and our group in terms of maybe doing a contract together. But we've been making efforts to do that. And as part of my presentation for support of the PUD, I was going to explain all the things that have been occurring in the last few years to try to be better neighbors at the landfill. Now, this is not the landfill. This is the soil borrow PUD, and it doesn't in any way expand the landfill. It just allows us to operate in a more expeditious way than the alternatives if we continue to operate the landfill. We would have to go off-site and haul dirt across the public streets to come in here and comply with requirements if we don't get our soil borrow. And with this soil borrow, and in a timely way, we'll be able to move dirt internally and not have to get on the streets and all the problems that can add. And that's why it's urgent to us at this point. But we are working diligently, have been working diligently to resolve these issues. And I don't know if 30 days would do it or not, but we're going to continue to work. Even if you adopt this today, we're going to continue to work to resolve because, secondly, we've got the council issues to deal with, and then thirdly, we've got long-term issues to deal with. And at some point in time, we'll be back with another soil borrow PUD because we have to continue to acquire a source of soil to cover the waste that's deposited in this landfill in order to comply with the city and the state regulations. We have to have the soil. That's not an option.
I can see, Mr. Thompson, that the concerns of the adjacent landowner, and you were right, the boundary to the south butts up exactly against the trailer park, and I realize that there's a time deadline that you're working with too, but can't we split the difference, continue it for 2 weeks, and that's the end of it? Mainly because my request is to accommodate, landfills are scary things, just by definition. Dredging out dirt, whatever you're going to do with it, adjacent to the trailer park's headquarters, which is, that abuts up against, like what's going to happen. But I really didn't see any reason in the world, since this has been known by everybody and continued for a while, that there was any reason to continue it for a month. Things can happen in 2 weeks, and then that's the end of the continuances, and we hear it in 2 weeks.
Are you Ms. Roberts? Excuse me.
Yes, this is Ms. Roberts.
Wait. If you want to speak, you come to the microphone. Someone, just a second, Mr. Thompson. They'd signed up to address the case, and if there's an issue on the continuance, I want to hear it. Just wait. Tell us your name and address, please.
Okay. Now, I have a hearing problem.
Your name, your address.
Oh, Lucille Roberts, 2550 Southeast 59th, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73129.
And her property sits right in the middle of the area that they're right there by the landfill.
And is there an issue with the continuance?
Well, I've been dealing with these people since 2002.
Well, wait. We're on only one issue right now.
Well, I don't hear good. Okay, go ahead.
The question is, do we continue the case or hear it today? That's the only question.
Yes, we need a continuance.
And what do you intend to accomplish in a couple of weeks' time if we grant the continuance?
Well, there's several factors that's going on there with the land. One thing is there's oil on the land. She's right there butted up. They've been trying to buy her property for a long time. She refuses to sell it because she's also been trying to deal with the oil company because
Our issue is only the continuance, and our concerns are only land use. So mineral rights and issues like that are not something that the Planning Commission can address.
Well, let me tell you, these people have pulled permits on my land, forged my signature, and everything, and changed my deeds and everything to my property. I got papers.
That's a legal issue for a court, and we are not a court. We can't. I'd like to help you, but we can't.
He said that's a legal issue for the court.
Well, I got it in court already.
Yeah, well, we're not a court is the problem, so we can't help you with that.
And plus, they direct drilling.
That, again, is a mineral rights issue and not something we can address.
What are you saying now?
Well, a continuous would help us maybe have more time to be able to talk to, she's talked to several lawyers. Maybe it'd give her time to talk to her lawyers and try to do something about this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Wait a minute.
We understand.
Those lawyers I had sold me out. I've got my case into Washington, D.C. now. I'm working with Washington. And plus, I have changed some of my property, my mineral rights, over to the committee in Washington, D.C.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, let's sit. They don't want to hear no more. Let's go just sit down. Let's go sit down. We're done.
Mr. Thompson and then Mr. Allen.
Do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Jim, you ready?
I guess we're ready to hear from you.
Yes.
It's 2 weeks.
2 weeks causes us a problem because of our timing. But let me suggest this as an alternative. As you'll see, there's 2 tracks up above that are a portion of this PUD. If it would, and we're going to need soil in one of those tracks, and particularly the far eastern tract, the greatest priority. And so if it would make the continuance issue easier to deal with, we would withdraw the western track, the one that's adjacent to the trailer park, and deal with it at a later date. But ask you to deal today only with the eastern track.
Michael, that would solve your problem, wouldn't it?
I believe it would. Procedurally, I'm just curious. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Well, I bet that my next question would be to my legal counsel here to the left as to whether we can split this in that manner. But if it would solve your problem, that would at least...
Certainly the immediacy of it, yes, it would.
If he's withdrawing it, he can withdraw it, but he would have to reapply for that particular.
Yes, that's what I intend to do, to withdraw the western track, and it would have to come back on a new PUD at some later date.
Okay.
Well, I think what Susan says is you have to withdraw your whole application.
No.
Just that track, and you just do that track? Okay, that's fine. We can do that then.
So it would just be essentially amending the legal description of what we're covered in, as this PUD goes forward, to withdraw that track.
Right.
Okay.
And we would withdraw that block, the western block up there, the portion that's adjacent to the trailer park.
And I believe Mr. Thompson's correct. We would go forward. We're going to continue to have discussions anyway, because that, I'm sure, is going to, at some point, become important to you in the future, so it'll give us time to do that.
Well, and we would appreciate it if they would do that before that PUD is reapplied.
Absolutely,
for
as would we. As would we.
Okay.
So I think the motion would be to approve the withdrawal of the western portion of the PUD.
We don't need to do anything right now. We can do it when we hear the case.
Okay.
Right, when it comes up on the normal rotation, right?
Yeah, we'll take item 5 in order now, and with that understanding.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. J.J.?
The applicant on item 8, Spud 548, would like a continuance to March 11th.
Has anyone signed up for item 8? Russell? In that case, has anyone come down to talk to us today about item 8? If not, we'll take a motion to continue it to March 11th. JJ?
I move that we continue item 8 to March the 11th.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue item 8. Cast your votes, and it is approved. Are there any other continuous requests from the public? Hearing none, we'll go to items in order.
These are not items requiring a separate vote. Item 1 has been approved. Item 2 is CE 779, which is an application by Chesapeake Land Company to close the east-west alley in Block 123, North Oklahoma City Edition, located south of Northwest 63rd Street and east of Western Avenue in Ward 2.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Dennis Box and Tim Johnson, we're here on behalf of the applicant. This is the garden tract that Chesapeake is using. We have coordinated with staff. There is no objection. I have actually talked to the ladies that have been participating in the hearings, and they have indicated they have no objection. And so we're here to ask your approval. You know, there's a community garden that Chesapeake's looking at, and well, I'm going to ask Ms. Johnson.
As part of the community garden, Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates, they're proposing some sidewalks, and that what you see is a pergola. It'll have some lattice on top.
Okay.
We dealt with this issue before the Board of Adjustment, as I'm sure Mr. Allen will remember, in regard to utilization of fencing. And so we had some fencing questions, got those resolved, met with neighbors. They're happy, and obviously this will be an interim use, but for the present purposes, that's what we're going to use it for. And this is just to clean up what's not needed by the city.
Dennis, do you anticipate that there will be more alley and street closings between, say, Classen on the west and the rail line on the east? And if
I think there will. I have advised my client that before we have other applications that we bring before the Planning Commission, we need to make sure and coordinate and let the Commission know what our planning is, since that's been an issue that you all rightfully are concerned about and want to know about. But yes, I would think there would be some more, but at the present time, we don't have those in the works.
Okay, well, you got to my point, and we'd like to see that come back maybe in a comprehensive presentation to us.
Would the Commission want that as part of the presentation, as part of our application, or would the Commissioners want to make sure they knew what was going on before we appeared before this Commission?
Well, speaking only for me, I would be happy to see it come in with the application. Janice may have a different idea, and she's looking at me, so we'll hear from her.
I think with regard to the Commissioner from the ward, we'll make sure that she and Councilman Bowman are apprised well before. We'll meet with you.
Okay.
And anybody else that wanted to.
Okay. We have no one signed up.
And Dennis, this is in accordance with the master plan, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have no one signed up. Action?
Move on.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 2. Cast your votes, and that's approved. Thank you, Dennis.
Item 3 is C 6197, which is a preliminary plat of Ann Arbor Village, located north of Northwest 23rd Street and west of North Ann Arbor in Ward 3.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Brian Kuhn with Kuhn Engineering representing the applicant. This is a preliminary plat that was approved, I believe, back in 06, or there was a preliminary plat approved back in 06 that had 22 lots. A new owner has purchased the property, and we're now presenting a new preliminary plat that has 18 lots, so it's fewer lots than before. Original plat had more just a simple cul-de-sac, 2 cul-de-sac type streets, but still one entrance. We're still in the same location with the entrance. It's just we've put a kind of a median walkway, green belt in the middle of the street instead of having just street in the middle. There are 9 TEs. I think staff may be adding 1 or 2 more that we need some variances. This is kind of an infill project that we're needing some variance to be able to make this work, and I think you'll like what you see, I hope. I know you've looked at the plat, but there's 9 TEs that I know about, and we agree with all of them. We've talked with Fred Calhoun with fire. He is okay with what we've done now. I believe that paving is okay with what we're doing, and would request approval.
Will there be sidewalks, Brian, or?
Yes, and I don't know if you have the plat, I guess you've got the plat in front of you, or maybe you don't. If you don't, let me show you what we're doing. It's just a little bit different than just flat out, just plain sidewalks. We'll have here's the entrance. There'll be sidewalks all the way along the Harbor, sidewalks all the way along both streets, and then instead of coming down to the end, we're going to have, these will be pretty, I think they're almost 15 foot of green belt on each end of these sacks because of the house over here. So we're asking that we don't have the sidewalk here, we'll put it in here, so that you can walk around the neighborhood. There's no like, again, 18 houses, so it's not like there's heavy traffic, it's gated, so there won't be public in and out. But the variance on the sidewalk is just we don't have to go around the ends. We can do it, but you're going to lose a lot of landscaping if we do that. So I feel like this is a pretty good alternate. Sidewalk all the way along the street here. So the street.
Are you sure you're able to afford that sidewalk? That little short sidewalk?
These are sidewalks too.
Oh.
Here, all this shaded part that you see are sidewalks. Yeah, and I think we can we're just trying to reserve this for landscaping.
So Brian, can you pass that around?
Okay.
Brian, on the north side, which abuts the backyards of houses, what are you doing on that side?
Where the paving is, or if almost
there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 houses whose backyard backs up on that north side. So is it a wall?
Yes. Well, there's fence. We have solid fence along the entire perimeter of the whole site.
What, wooden?
And there's only the sides of 2 houses will abut those 5.
See, this is the backyard business. And will you do landscaping along there?
Along the street, and then, of course, along the people's yards, they can do what they want as far as landscaping in their backyards.
At the end of those cul-de-sacs?
At the end of the cul-de-sacs, we're doing landscaping, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ryan, the original plat provided for, 10-foot setbacks? And
yes.
You've got 17.5-foot setbacks now?
In the front, yes.
I'll trade you 2.5 feet for a couple of variances to get 20 feet of setback. I'm concerned about sidewalks being usable.
And in the front?
Cars.
So you want 20 foot in the front?
At the garage front, anyway. I don't care about the building front so much as the garage door front, because if we get a garage or a drive to the garage door that's too short, people's cars hang over the sidewalks and people can't use the sidewalks, and we put them in there for a reason.
Okay. What do we have now, 17.5?
17.5.
Right. I'm fine with that. 20. Sure. And again, we need, there's going to be a few more variance requests coming up.
And you did say you cleared this with the fire department, and
Yes,
they're
sir.
okay with turning the trucks
Yes,
around
sir.
in that?
Yes, sir. This actually exceeds the normal cul-de-sac for turning radius, so. That was why we continued last time, because Mr. Calhoun had not had a chance to look at it, so we continued to get with him.
JJ, you've got additional variances?
Yeah, first you can delete TEs 3 and 4.
Right.
New TE 10, a variance to section 58261 will be required not to connect the sidewalks along the north and south ends of the interior street, and this will also require a subsequent PUD amendment. And
Yes.
Brian's aware of that. TE 11, a variance to section 528 is required, which requires a minimum 12 feet of right-of-way between the face of the curb and the property line. And that's at the entrance to the subdivision where it bubbles out to allow a car to turn around. He's at 11.75 feet, so it's fairly minimal.
Okay.
And TE 12, a variance to section 5.2.2 will be required for the substandard site triangles on Lot 1, Block 1, and Lot 2, Block 3. That's at the same location at the entry, the 2 lots at the entry.
But only on the interior corners, not on the Ann Arbor side.
Okay. Commissioners, any further discussion on item 3? No one's protesting. We've got only, we're up to like 6 variances now.
Yeah. And I've talked with Kim Lowe, who was the president of that Windsor Area Neighbor Association, a lot, and she's fine with what we're doing, and she thinks it's a great improvement. So we've talked with her a lot, too.
Any further discussion, action?
I move, I don't know how many variances we're dealing with.
There are 6. You've got to do them one at a time.
Do I start with the variance on number 7? Is that right? Move.
5. 5, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12.
Variance on number 5.
Second.
5 doesn't need a variance.
No?
It requires a Board of Adjustment.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right.
We're looking at 7, 8, 10, 11, and 12.
All right. I move on the variance on item number 7.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve variance item 7. Cast your votes.
Same motion on TE number 8.
Second. Okay, motion and second. Cast your votes.
Same motion on TE number 10.
Second. Motion and second. Cast your votes.
And same motion on TE number 11.
Second. A motion and second. Cast your votes again.
Is that it?
One more, 12.
Same motion on TE number 12.
Second. A motion and second to approve the variance to item 12. Cast your votes.
And with the TEs as approved, I move to approve the application.
I second the...
Deleting T's 3 and 4 and amending the setback to 20 feet.
That's what I meant to say.
Okay.
Front setback. Front setback.
Front setback, yes. And we have a second. Cast your votes. Item 3 is approved as conditioned.
Brian, since we've done this now, I think you can probably add this application to your other championship trophy of having the most TEs on a case. I believe this is the most variances we've ever had on a 2-acre plot of ground.
It's a great honor to accept that. Thank you.
Good job.
Item 4 is C 6200, a revised preliminary plat of Timber Creek Estates, Section 2, located west of Mustang Road and south of Southwest 15th Street in Ward 3.
Good afternoon. Tim Johnson with Johnson & Associates, representing the applicant. This is a preliminary plat of a tract that had been previously platted. With this plat, we added approximately 7 acres on the east side of the property, and there's been some other platting done around this tract since the original preliminary plat was done. We've connected to the west, as shown, and then, as Kathy is handing out, there's been a request by the developer on the south, which doesn't show up on your map, unfortunately, for a street stub to the south. We have talked to our clients regarding this, and our client is not necessarily opposed to a street stub. However, with the approval of the preliminary plat south of us, it included, maybe it'll show up, here you go. It includes a connection from the rest of their development on the east side of their development off of Mustang, but it also includes a very large bridge. And our fear, the developer's fear in our property, is that we would put in a stub to the south and develop our first section with that connection, and they would come in and begin to develop their property west of the creek without making that creek crossing, which is a big expense. And we would, on behalf of my client, I would request that we'd be able to stipulate that we will put that stub in at such time that they bring their connection to the north, and reserve a lot for that to happen. We're going to plat this in 2 final plat sections. The first section has been submitted to the staff, which would include that east-west farthest south street. And we do indicate on that plat, as submitted to the staff, a note to the effect that I just explained. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on that. And I know we were in between commissioners, and I apologize, Mr. Irwin, that you weren't in a position that I could talk to you about this, kind of give everybody a heads up. But I think I think our client's concern is valid. We've run into this before on some other properties that I've been working on. It's just, they could easily drop in 30 to 40 lots with our circulation and not have to build that bridge, and that's a concern of my clients.
Tim, on this map, this
yes, sir.
The stub on the property to the south, whoever's going to develop that, it appears to go right smack in the middle. It doesn't appear to be crossing anything. I mean, their stub, you see that?
Yeah, that's correct. The bridge that I'm speaking of is the connection between their west half and their east half of their plat. You see right in the middle where it says R1? That's a bridge connection.
Bob, do you see where it is?
Yeah, I do. No, I see where the bridge is, but we're just dealing with this northern part, and we want a stub to the south. Isn't that the whole issue?
Yes.
And the stub to the south on the southern portion, it looks like that they've planned for a stub going north.
Correct.
And so what your guy does is just match it.
Right.
So I don't understand where the bridge issue comes in.
Our concern is if we put our stub in and build it today, then that property owner can come in and use all the streets that we've installed at our expense and do all of his construction on his site through our addition without building a bridge across the creek.
Effectively, Bob, the guy comes in back up here at the very far north portion, drives all the way through the neighborhood to this one single stub, and develops the whole south part.
I see exactly what...
I have a better feel for it now than I did a little earlier.
Yeah.
It seems a little more logical now to me.
So you'll reserve a lot
Yes,
for
sir.
as much space as needed to line up with that at such time as they are ready to develop.
Yes, sir. And we've
come
stipulated...
across from the east, of course.
Yes. Yeah, we do show that, obviously.
Okay. Got it. So we need to amend a TE here.
Yes, sir. TE number 2, I guess it would be amended to allow it at such time that the development to the south is ready to receive it.
Tim, this doesn't really make a whole lot of difference, but why are we out of sync here on the platting and the zoning?
It wasn't discovered until we were ready to submit the final plat that was part of a CUP, and in fact the tract to the north that's already been sold as lots was actually part of that as well. And so we agreed to fix it as long as we could hear it before the final plat.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, any other comment or discussion? There's no one signed up.
Move approval of the application as amended, amending TE number 2 to include the language that will permit the stub to be put in as the south portion developed.
Okay. Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 4, amending TE 2. Cast your votes, and that's approved.
Thank you very much.
Items 5, 6, and 7 have been continued, and 8. No, actually, sorry.
5 is not continued.
I had the wrong one. Item 5 is not continued. Item 5 is PUD 1408, which is an application by Oklahoma City Landfill to rezone 2700 Southeast 59th Street from R1, I2, and PUD 120, single family, moderate industrial, and PUD to PUD 1408, Ward 4. Sorry about that.
Again, I'm Bob Thompson, attorney for the applicant. While we're here today only for a soil borrow and not any expansion of the landfill, obviously the landfill, the operation of the landfill is an integral part of everything we do. And so I'd like to mention a couple of things that we've done in the past that's kind of progressed through these series of soil borrow PUDs to make sure that we continue to be the best citizen and neighbor we can be in this area. As Mr. Allen can attest, and he's been points it out to us when we fall short of keeping mud off of Bryant Street, In the past, we've had problems with trucks, as if it was inclement weather, as they would leave the landfill, they would carry mud out onto Bryant Street, either north or south, as they went back to wherever their respective places are. So 2 or 3 things have been done to address the various issues. The other main issue of that location being when the wind blows, which it occasionally does in Oklahoma City, then trash, before it's had a chance to be covered by soil, can blow. And so those are the 2 major issues we've had to address in terms of being good neighbors. Internally, what this site has done is paved a significant portion, over a half a mile of the internal road within the landfill has been paved so that it reduces the amount of mud that would get picked up. And then in addition to that, near the exit, an investment of over $300,000 has been made with a wheel wash system that would wash off as much of the remaining mud as exists as it gets close out to Bryant Street. And we've discussed it with various people and believe that we've been successful in that. In addition to that, in order to deal more effectively with blowing trash, over approximately $40,000, actually it's $50,000, been invested in what we call a golf course wind fencing. The high kinds of fences that would block errant golf balls will also block errant trash before it leaves the site. In addition to that, if some trash does leave the site, our site manager regularly has his employees go out and pick up any trash that would be a burden on the community, and we understand that, and we want to deal with that effectively. In addition to that, the other problem that can exist when it's too dry and not too wet is you can have dust. If you're mining this dirt and hauling it up, put it on the top of the landfill in order to meet the regulations. So by the end of March, there will be installed approximately a $40,000 sprinkler system that will be utilized, and that's in our PUD application, that we will sprinkle on non-inclement days as we remove soil here. So those are just things we're trying to do to be good neighbors. One thing that we do to hopefully be a good citizen of the city of Oklahoma City is in 2009, the city pays impact fees to the city of Oklahoma City based on the tonnage of waste that the city and any other party might deposit at this site. And the city of Oklahoma City is probably our largest customer at this site. In excess of $1 million in impact fees were paid to the city of Oklahoma City from the operation of this site in 2009. And we also pay significant fees to the state of Oklahoma for the same kind of impact. The landfill directly employs 15 people and then indirectly employs many others. We've tried to do the landscaping the best way we can. We've tried to be good citizens. And I want to, hopefully it's not necessary, but I want to address just very briefly the Lucille Robert comments. It's clear, Ms. Roberts stated, we've stated we have made several efforts to purchase Ms. Roberts' property. And without disclosing any confidences, I can tell you that we have offered substantially in excess of twice what any market appraisal for that property would be. If you have a copy of her protest letter, you will see that she believes that her property contains a major oil find ready to be found, and that she believes that what we want is her oil, not her soil. And in fact, she has filed 2 lawsuits against us and Old Dominion Oil Company, which are neighbors to the east, and said just that we've stolen her minerals, we've altered her deeds, that we've polluted her property, we've done various things. Both those lawsuits have been dismissed. In fact, we were awarded a judgment by the court, which I promise you we will never try to collect from Mrs. Roberts. We want to be a good neighbor to her. There's just an issue of confusion there, and we believe that we're treating her right. We'll continue to treat her right, and if and when she wants to sell her property and reserve the minerals, we will be glad to buy the surface only and let her keep her minerals. But with that said, I'll be glad to answer any questions, and I have the site manager and the environmental manager here today that can address any questions you have.
And we are now withdrawing the west tract
of
the 2 tracts that we see in our application today.
And the division between the 2 is Mrs. Roberts' property. That's her property in between those 2. And so it's the western portion of this, which would be the northwest corner up there, where you see those two cul-de-sacs. Those cul-de-sacs are actually closed streets that have been approved by this commission in the city years ago. And so it's that tract that contains those two old streets that we are withdrawing.
Now, just that tract, there's a line right past those cul-de-sacs, or are you
Well, but it's everything within that dotted perimeter.
Everything within the dotted area?
That's correct.
Okay.
Susan, question, in order to separate that tract from the application, how does a motion need to read? Do we have to describe the legal description of that, or just?
I think you could just describe it as the west
Well, in our
track.
It's the westerly of the two tracts.
Right. I understand what it is. I just want to know if we need
Mr.
to
Chairman,
say
our staff report also shows that it's some 558.94 feet east and west, so we could reference that also.
Okay, are there any questions of Mr. Thompson? No one has signed up.
I have to say a couple of words about the landfill. I think in the past, I don't know, Bob, has it been 3 or 4 years since y'all were in here before?
I think the last one was 2006 when we were here. Yeah.
They committed to do some things, and I made sure that they stayed with their commitment. If you can, I've called Bob on several occasions. I've been out there on several occasions, and they have complied with everything we've asked. And, it's not the best situation. I wish that trash dump, landfill, whatever you want to call it, was in a different location, but it's not. It's there. And they have done a fantastic job, as far as I'm concerned, with the landfill, trying to maintain it, trying to keep everything that they've stirred up on their property, and they're continuing to do that. And do we have any protests? No. Okay. With that, I will recommend.
She's gone.
I will recommend approval of the application, excluding the westerly, parcel of that.
I think that the westerly parcel is 558.94 feet running east and west, and it's 658 feet north and south.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to...
Wait, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mike.
Just for future reference more than anything else, the applicants had mentioned, or Ms. Thompson's mentioned, that you don't plan to use this property now, but only these part, for a landfill at any point. Does the zoning that's being approved today in the PUD permit that to be used in the future? No.
No.
So I just wanted to, so that'll be the same.
We have about 1 million hoops we'd have to jump through before we could do that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second as conditioned to approve item 5. Cast your votes, and it's approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll get the right continuances now. That is items 6, 7, and 8 are continued. Item 9 is an ABC 709, which is an application by Hashman Saidi for an ABC 3 overlaying C4 General Commercial at 4700 South I-35 Service Road in Ward 4.
Chairman and Commissioners, I'm Jerry Elledge, 22 Garden Oaks, McLeod, Oklahoma, 74851.
I'm Leanne Killian, 16603 Railhead Drive, Choctaw, Oklahoma.
Speaking on behalf of Mr. Sadid about the protest to the putting in the ABC3, we feel that we're putting $250,000 into the property. We're going to improve the frontage road. We may increase the business of the hotel. We actually have some photos. If we can submit these.
Over to Mr. Hensley.
As of right now, the hotel and the RV park have no kind of recreation or anything close to it, no restaurants. We're putting in a sports bar / restaurant. We'll serve food, cater to all types of people. Some of the concerns were the fact that shootings and gang violence and fighting, shooting, and late night activities, but through a strict dress code policy, through outside security cameras, which will also add to the security of the RV park and the hotel, because we have people outside monitoring the parking lot consistently. We feel that shouldn't be an issue. With the frontage road, being right now, it's kind of an eyesore. It's a vacant lot. People aren't looking that direction. You see the pictures of the hotel, the dilapidated fence, the boarded up section that's just south of our property. Doesn't pose any threat there. The RV park is 382 feet, I believe, away from the end of our property. And the property does meet all the requirements for the ABC3 zoning. Is there any questions at this time?
Give us a couple of minutes to circulate the photographs that you've passed.
The amount of square footage that you've asked for the ABC, is that just the square footage for your proposed restaurant, bar?
That is the proposed, yes, and the parking. It's supposed to include the parking lot. If you want to pass that around.
We have to include the parking lot?
Well, the whole thing is considered the parking area, and the whole thing is all one. It's only 5,000 square feet for the building itself.
Oh, okay. Okay. Can I see your picture there?
While we're doing that, we have two people who have signed up in protest. Harold Smart. If you would come up to this microphone, please. If you'd pull the microphone down, give us your name and address, and tell us your protest.
I'm Harold Smart. The address is 4800 South I-35 Service Road, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Well, our protest is our property is just south of this development that they are proposing. And we bought our property in 2006. At that time, we realized we had a lot of nuisance in that property. It took us about over 2 years to clear all the drug, alcohol, prostitute around that area. And if you look at the police record for last 2003, 4, 5, 6, average probably 2 to 3 times or maybe 4 times a week, they used to call Oklahoma City Police for the problems. And if you look at now, since we bought it, probably you won't see even one time a week. So we have worked hard to clean this area, and historically, when you have a club that serves the alcohol, that create this kind of nuisance. If you look at anywhere in the city where we have club, and you can look at the police report, probably it will show those nuisance. And our concern is, on our property, we sell rooms weekly. There are people live week after week with the family, with their kids, and their kids play on the property. And our concern is, yes, they can control their property, but a person living the property, alcohol in his system, they are not going to monitor once they leave the property. And our concern is those little kids that play on the playground in the evenings after they come from the school. And our concern is this kind of nuisance could create a problem for young kids.
Okay,
and that's our biggest concern.
Any questions for Mr. Smart, Commissioner?
I do have a question. I noticed on the photographs that were furnished, is there a fence between your property and this property? Is it
Yes,
fenced
we
off?
do have fence.
Is there any access between that fence and this property?
Obviously, they can come walk from Frontage Road side. If you look at the Frontage Road, the fence doesn't go all the way to Frontage Road. So it's easily they can walk in and out.
Is there a restaurant in your hotel?
No, sir.
Now, perhaps one other thing, the actual frontage of the road actually is a one-way, so when they pull out of the parking lot, they'll be going the opposite direction of the hotel. They're not going in that direction whatsoever. It goes out to the north, yes, onto the service road.
Okay, Mr. Smart, thank you.
And one more thing, we are serving just beer only. I'm not doing any liquor, mixed drinks. We're just only going to do beer, but I'm applying for the ABC3, so I don't have to maintain the 51% food sales to beer sale ratio, because we are doing a bar, sports bar / restaurant, so people will stay in, late at night and have more drinks than they will food, I'm sure.
Russell Hunt. If you'd give us your name and address and tell us your concerns.
I am Russell Hunt, Jr., and I own the building at 4600 South I-35, directly to the north of the property. We currently have a tenant in that building that is a cheerleading and dance place. They do cheerleading and dance training for 4 to 18-year-old girls mainly. We've had a problem in the area for years with vagrants and drunks and all kinds of problems, especially in the area behind the building. There's homeless groups that have set up small camps back there, and we continually, almost once or twice a week, have drunks behind our building, and we are concerned, as anybody would be next to a new club, of the problems that new club might pose to, especially to all the girls and children and families that we have coming in there daily.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Hunt? Thank you.
May I speak in reference to that?
Certainly.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what the hours of operation are, but ours will be from 11 o'clock in the afternoon, because we serve lunch and that things, to 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure they're not doing any tumbling activities, past, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, children's bedtimes, that kind of thing. This is more of an adult establishment. I understand that. But with added security outside and a proper and strictly enforced dress code, I really don't see any problem with any of our clientele. Also, it's a family-owned business. It's my mother-in-law. So we're actually, all the money that's made here is spent in Oklahoma to improve Oklahoma City. We're going to create about 20 to 25 brand new jobs for Oklahomans. And all that money, of course, will be spent back in Oklahoma City. I think now the way the recession is going, creation of jobs is the way to go.
Well, one thing that might concern your neighbors north and south is that once we zone this ABC3, that goes with the land, and while you may intend to operate and sell only beer, anytime after that you can change your mind or sell this to someone else who can sell hard liquor. So, I mean, the reason for doing the ABC3, I understand what you're saying about a balance between food and beer sales, but once it's an ABC3, it's an ABC3.
Absolutely, I understand that. But since we are actually going to purchase the property from Mr. Saeed, and then we're going to put $250,000 into the property itself, I don't really see us leaving anytime soon.
We hear that from time to time, too.
I understand.
There's no way to keep you in that site
right.
once you get this approval. I just offer that for everyone's consideration.
Sure, absolutely.
Commissioners?
I guess I just have to take this opportunity to point out that this is yet another example of how flawed our ABC system is. We've had several of these applications in the last year where people came in and were indicating that they really just wanted to sell beer, but they had to bump up to ABC3 to avoid the food sales quota, and I just really feel like we need to do something about this that makes more sense.
Any discussion, Commissioners? Any other comments?
My comment about only the beer sales, I wish that there was a requirement that we could attach to an ABC3 approval with an asterisk, beer only.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But you can't.
Right.
I understand that. I want to point out.
But I have to say, and I appreciate the comments of the protesters, both north and south, the hours of operation are what you would expect for a restaurant bar. But I don't think that it's your fault that there has been problems in the area of whatever criminal activity there would be. I'm encouraged about the security system that you're going to install. The fact that this is a north access out of there so it doesn't hit the I assume that this hotel or motel has long-term residents that live there, but you're not going to go past them. So, again, I wish there was an asterisk that we could do this. Like you say, Janice, it's all, it's just silly the way that but I move approval of the application.
Is there a second?
Well, I've got one other question before we vote. I'd like to know what that PUD 1379 is. Do you happen to know, JJ?
The PUD 1379 is a little 40-foot section on the other side of the gravel road that goes in between our property and that little piece.
Do you own the property just to the north of that?
No, Mr. Saeed owns the property. We're going to purchase it from him. Leanne spoke to the owner of the trailer park's son, and he said they'll probably use that for overflow parking, if anything.
So PUD 1379 is
It's an RV
park?
I-1 regulations, but it allows for the more recreational vehicle park, I believe.
Well, could that be used as access maybe to that this property?
Correct.
If they don't own it, I don't know how it could.
Ray Doomkeen, 4800 South Hattie Avenue. I'm the owner of the Roadrunner RV Park. About 2 years ago, we purchased the property which surrounds the subject property there on the south and on the east. And that will be our entrance from the service road going to our, we're going to expand the RV park, and that'll be our entrance. And we plan on using that part right there on the south of the subject property for the entrance, for activity, probably for the children. Being an RV park, especially during the summer, we get a lot of families with kids. And just walking paths, we probably will put a basketball court, but there'll be a lot of family activity in that area, and that's why I wrote a protest letter, because we feel like having a club there with late-night activities isn't the image that we want for our RV park or, customers, travelers that are coming to Oklahoma City with their families to witness things that happen late at night.
So you own the property, the 1379?
Yes, the PUD, yeah.
JJ, what is the 1370? Is that residential? What is it zoned for right now? What is that PUD for?
The PUD for a recreational vehicle park.
Well, would that not make that fall within the realm of a residential property, being if it abuts the back part of the property that's under?
It's not it's a I-1 regulations. It's not a residential zoning district, and an RV park's not a residential use. It's a commercial use.
It's I-1.
Okay. What about your comment on back here on the back that said that this was in 560 feet of an R1?
That's
in our packet.
Yeah, it's all the way. Where the closest R1 is
okay.
East of 1379.
Oh, it doesn't include the mobile home park?
No.
Okay.
Can I say something in reference to that? That area right there, just to the south, it's the PUD 1379.
Residential.
That is an access road to that oil well, which you'll see in that picture that is behind that property. So there's that road and what he owns in between that and the hotel. So that's 74 feet there. I don't really ever see that being anything other than an access road. I don't see a basketball court or an activity center going in that area right there on the service road next to us in the motel.
Well, I had a similar question because I couldn't imagine putting a bunch of kids right out there and having them play on the front.
Exactly.
That's.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We've had a number of applications up and down I-35. Most of them have been cleaning the area up. Probably the most notable was the hotel conversion that we had not long ago. This just appears to be going the opposite direction of what all those things have been doing. I'm not against clubs and beer bars, but right here, with what else has been going on there, it just seems to be going the wrong direction.
We do have a motion and a second. Any other discussion, Commissioners?
I wish I had heard about the PUD 1379 before I made my motion.
You can withdraw it.
Well, I'm going to withdraw the motion.
Okay. Do we have...
I guess my question on this is, though, is still, I mean, I don't necessarily see a land use argument for the denial. I mean, there's no zoning around there that prohibits it. It's a commercial area where if the hotel came in and said, I want a bar, we'd rubber stamp it. I mean, Mr. Smart certainly has that capability at some time in the future to come in and say, I'd like to open up a bar in association with my hotel. I mean, I'm just struggling a little bit with this. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the protesters or anybody. This one is a little challenging, but as I look at, you know, if that were the case, that would be exactly, there would be summarily, we would do it, 5,000 square feet within a hotel, makes all the sense in the world. Restaurant and bar. So 100 feet to the north, in a freestanding building, where we have more of a struggle, and the distance would be the same. It'd be closer to the RV park in that context. And so, you know, this one, on the land use issue, it makes sense. This has been a challenged developmental area for us for some years. I don't know what we would expect for new applications for uses in this area. I just don't know. So,
Mr. Smart? I like Commissioner's comment, but I'll tell you, I have not used and consumed alcohol. I have 3 kids, and I assure you that we will never come up with application that comes to our hotel. But the other thing is, I heard probably 3 business owners around this place, and they all have same concern about the kids. And I hope the Commission consider that, our concern, and make decision based on our concern.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, Mr. Chairman. I'm a single dad. I have 6 children. One 10 years old has cerebral palsy. You know, I'm looking for a way to support my family and create new jobs for Oklahoma City. Really, I don't see any way, shape, or form. I've been in the business 12 years of nightclubs, restaurants, the whole 9 yards. I've owned several. Just looking to do it again and do my part to Oklahoma City.
Thank you. Well, we do have a motion and a second. Are you ready to vote? Oh, we withdrew it. I'm sorry. Okay, that's right. Thank you. Is that?
He can withdraw his motion. He can withdraw a second.
Yeah. Okay, so now we need a...
You know, I don't want to be naive about this and about the effect or influence of a sports bar on an area, but I have to say I find Commissioner Hensley's comments to be persuasive, and I also think that it's at least possible, I'll put it that way, that the development of this property, albeit as a sports bar, would somewhat reduce the problems that they're experiencing there. I mean, you know, people who are setting up, you know, homeless camps or vagrants with drug and alcohol issues, you know, don't tend to congregate around developing businesses. So, I mean, I as I said, I don't want to be naive about it, but I think that this might actually improve this area. And you don't say that very often about bars. But
Okay, Commissioners, we need a motion up or down.
I'm going to move for approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, and again, it's the same motion we had before. Ready to vote? Okay. Cast your votes. Somebody didn't vote. Powers. After making the motion. It passes 5-4.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman, Commissioners.
Item 10 is PC 10244, an application by Woods Enterprise to rezone 17401 South Santa Fe from AA Agricultural Drive 1 Single Family in Ward 5.
Good afternoon. I'm Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll Sparks representing the applicant. And this is a 40-acre tract that you can see, as per your map, takes frontage onto Santa Fe Avenue. It's located generally at the half-mile line between Southwest 164th and 179th Street. As once again on your map, you can see that we're abutted on the south by vacant agricultural property as well as the church. On the west, same thing, vacant agricultural property. The east side, on the other side of Santa Fe, is the city of Moore. I think it's city of Norman a little bit further south. And then obviously on the north, we're abutted by the existing Talavera subdivision, which is developed as single-family residential. This tract does have water and sewer availability. Utilities are there. I'll talk a little bit about that with the preliminary plat. It is supported by your comprehensive plan, staff's recommended approval, and we'd ask the same. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
Commissioners, no one has signed up. I'll move approval. We have a motion and a second to approve item 10. Cast your votes, and it's approved.
Item 11 is C6191, which is a preliminary plat of Rio Toscano at the same address, Ward 5.
Again, for the record, Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll Sparks, representing the applicant. If I might, just real briefly, let me talk about the utilities, and then I'll address the TEs. In regards specifically to the sanitary sewer service to this property, we will be connecting in to the sewer lines that were built with the Talavera addition. Specifically, our whole site will gravity feed to the what would be the northeast corner of our property, to a gravity line that runs parallel along Santa Fe to a lift station at the corner of 164th and Santa Fe. That lift station was built with Talavera subdivision, so the developer of Talavera had expressed some concerns just to make sure that what we were doing would not adversely impact that lift station. We have done all the preliminary calculations as well as preliminary construction plans, submitted them to your staff as well as to Mr. Odom, the developer, his engineer, which happens to be Tim Johnson. So they've all looked at that, reviewed it. We're all in agreement as to what we're going to do. And I did agree with Mr. Odom that I would make a quick presentation as to what we were doing. And my client does agree. There are some improvements that need to be made to that facility, that lift station. And my client does agree to make those improvements with the first section that he comes in with. And those improvements will be made prior to us processing that final plat to the City Council. So that is kind of the issue there on the utilities. As far as the TEs, we are in agreement with all of staff's recommendations. In regards to TE number 3, I am asking for a variance on that long block, which I believe is 174th Street, the north or the east-west street on the north side. This is a situation where this particular site has obviously pretty narrow frontage for the depth. It also is really flat and poses some topographical constraints on it. And if you'll notice the common area in the middle of the block, that is going to be a pond, and it's really critical to me from a design aspect in regards to drainage that pond be where it's at. And that being the case, especially to not only facilitate that as well as your access code, I really am a little bit hamstrung in terms of what I can do with that block. So that's the reason I'm asking for the variance. You'll notice we have put a median in the middle of the block, as well as platting some common area on both the north and south side of the street to kind of help break that up. We've included curves on the streets as much as we can get. They're kind of gentle, but still we think that that'll help to break things up. So, but I'd respectfully ask for that variance. Be happy to answer any other questions you have.
Kendall, any chance of a street stub to the west, just to anticipate future development there?
We would be agreeable to that.
Okay. Commissioners, no one has signed up. Questions of Kendall? Comments?
I'll move the variance TE3.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the variance TE3. Cast your votes. Todd, you're...
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Kendall.
That's okay.
Do we need to add the street stub?
Add a TE7 to just for a stub to the west?
As mentioned, adding a TE7 for the street stub to the west for the tie-in. I'd move the move this application.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 11 as conditioned. Cast your votes, and you're approved. Thank you.
Item 12 is SPUD 441, an application by M&D Industries to rezone 2828 Southwest 89th Street from PUD 234 to SPUD 441, Ward 5.
Your name and address, please.
My name is Jim Cheney, 4151 Northwest 23rd Street, Oklahoma City. And first, let me thank you for letting us hear this today. And I am a little bit, the young man that was supposed to come and be here was sick, so I'm kind of filling in. So if you have a lot of questions, I may not be as much help as I should be. But I will try to answer questions if I can. This was, we had asked this for a LED sign. We had asked for a permit for one over a year ago, and it was put off until the city did their re-signing ordinances, and we're hearing it. So now that's why we're hearing it now. There is an actual LED sign on the property adjoining us, the pharmacy next to us. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer as much as I can.
Well, you would now be in compliance with our ordinance as we've adopted it. If you're in agreement with the TEs, say if you're in agreement with the technical evaluations in the staff report, have you seen the staff report?
I have not, but it's my understanding that it falls within the guidelines that we're looking.
No one has signed up.
One question, Mr. Chairman, for staff more than the applicant. This is a new SPUD. The restaurant's sitting in PUD 234. Are we doing anything differently in the way of the PUD other than providing for the sign now?
It's my understanding, just the sign ordinance.
Yeah, the only real reason for the PUD is because the PUD specifically prohibited flashing and signs.
I understand the sign part of it. I'm saying we're not making any other changes to the underlying PUD.
Yeah, they're consistent.
Very good.
Okay. Action?
Well, I have a question about the electronic message display ordinance that's in effect. And when I looked at this application, a request to change a PUD just because an ordinance has been passed, we don't have to change the PUD.
Well, you do if the condition in the PUD was very specific as to the operation of the sign, and now they want to operate it in compliance with the new ordinance. They have
That's really kind of a rhetorical question that I have.
Well, you know, it's kind of the flip side of that reversion clause that we always want to put in.
That's
to upgrade.
It's the opposite.
Exactly. It's the opposite. We want them to upgrade to landscaping, but not so fast on that sign.
With those flashing signs.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I agree with you, Bob.
It's the anti-reversion PUD application.
Well, I just because an ordinance had been passed, then it overrides what the conditions were of a PUD?
Only if we approve it.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I need.
That's why we're here.
Although I will say, and Janice has significant more experience at litigating land use issues than I would, that a denial based on we don't want to comply with our own ordinance seems to be a troubling legal argument later on down the road.
It would be.
But there's a case-by-case issue that comes up here.
And I'll tell you what my argument would be in that case. It's that a PUD is a specifically negotiated document. This was a specifically negotiated point. So,
Moving right along,
But the fact would still remain, the pharmacy next door has an LED sign, and
you're okay.
I'll move approval of the application.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a second? Okay, we have Bob, we're ready to vote. We have a motion and a second to approve this application. Cast your votes. And it's approved.
thank you.
7-2.
Item 13 is DA 22-937, an application by Salt Creek to obtain a lot split deed approval on property located at 12,001 Holland Street in Ward 7.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Collins. I'm an attorney for Salt Creek. We're here to get a deed approval, which is not a whole lot of these get done before the Planning Commission, but it has to be done because, let me give you a little explanation. My client owns the south 19 feet of Lot 5 and then the west 310 feet of Lot 6. That northern portion, the south 19 feet of 5 and what would be the north 132 feet of Lot 6 are subject to a sale. It's got a building on it. It's a former location, or perhaps current, of Boots and Coots, which is an oil field service company. There's a sale pending. And what will be remaining, which is the southern portion, the larger tract of Lot 6, won't have frontage on a public street. However, at the time my client sold off a large portion of its property further to the east, it entered into a permanent access agreement with that owner. That's been filed of record. And to tell you the truth, when you drive out there, there's no discernible difference between the street that dead ends at the southern portion of Lot 5 and all the rest of the pavement and the access. So we're here requesting a variance from the subdivision regs that will allow us to have this lot split to take place, and the frontage, and there won't be frontage on the remaining parcel, but we make up for it by way of this recorded access agreement. Now, is that clear as mud?
That's perfectly clear. No one has signed up. We have a variance requesting, or variance to Section 344C2B, H and K.
I move the variance from the frontage, for the frontage and the 25 feet required.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the variance. Cast your votes. Do we need another vote on the lot split, or are we done, Susan? We need a vote on the lot split then, so we need a vote on the application.
I move the lot split of the application.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 13. Cast your votes, and that is approved with, Nick, you're not voting? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Item 14 is SPUD 546, an application by Timothy Berry to rezone 1404 Southeast 19th Street from R1 single family to SPUD 546 in Ward 7.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Berry, give us your name and address, please.
It's 14700 South Sunny Lane, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Thank you. And since we saw you last, you've made some changes here in discussions with staff, is that correct?
Paperwork, and with JJ helping and assistant, I think we got all green lights. We're ready to go.
Do you agree to the TE?
And you agree with the TE, which is your sign will be a monument sign?
Yes.
Okay. No one has signed up, Commissioners.
I move approval of the application.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 14. Cast your votes, and you're approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Item 15 has been continued to March the 11th. Item 16 is C6199, which is the final plat of Deer Creek Park Section 1, located north of Northwest 150th Street and west of North MacArthur Boulevard in Ward 8.
Kendall Dillon with Crafton Toll Sparks, representing the applicant. This is a final plat that very closely matches the preliminary plat that you all saw before you a few weeks ago. And we've got two TEs, which we're in agreement with both of them, and be happy to answer any questions.
Kendall, how in the world did we have a preliminary plat one day and a final plat the next day, and we have changes? What happened?
Moving on. We work really quick. Now, we, like I say, we did, in the last couple of weeks, we've decided to make some changes. Some of those we were in the process of, obviously, while we were having the preliminary, but it was predominantly just moving common areas.
Well, you moved to common area,
right.
And, you know, two things that come to mind. I want you to address how you did the common area, what's different, and also the what are you doing on garage fronts? There was a question on that before.
Okay. In regards to the common area, what we've basically done is, you know, we had it more at the intersection of 158th Street and, well, I guess it would be 158th Street and 158th Harris. Mm-hmm. We had the common area right there in the corner of that intersection, and we've just decided that we would move it over kind of more to the edge of where you see it on this particular final plat, and you'll notice that we've kind of increased the size of that. So we've made, in essence, a larger common area to support a little bit more of some amenities there. So that's the purpose of that. And the second question in regards to the garage fronts, what we're intending to do is we've got the note on the plat that will agree to the 2 trees, and that's our plan.
Okay. We worked really hard on that committee and have all sorts of different, we've talked about this, about different procedures that you can create, all manner of things, from the corner setbacks, different things that would break up what you have the potential of having a very monotonous row of garage fronts for 500 feet. And even though we also, you know, it's not a requirement. You know, it's not an ordinance or something that we have that's in. It's an option. And I'm just curious why that option wouldn't be more seriously considered, and including street trees between the curb and the sidewalk. You know, rather than 2 trees in front of the garage and then you go on. All sorts of things were in that recommendation that we worked on with developers very hard in order to create a better subdivision environment rather than a row of garage fronts. And it's surprising to me that your client would come in and say, I'm just going to plant a 3-inch tree and go on. I mean, it really is, because there's a lot of good stuff in that option that we worked on. And I just hope that somebody's out there, I hope that you have a copy of it. I hope that you've received it and you've shown it to your client, and that, like, somebody's going to say, well, wait a minute. You mean I can do these different things? I know that cookie-cutter building is cookie-cutter building, and I'm not going to have a builder do anything different because it might create some extra time or some thought. But our committee, Mike's committee, that worked very hard on this, really did put the thought into it wouldn't be that much of a big deal to make this thing different. I mean, I don't mean to be on a soapbox on behalf of Mr. Hensley, but we really did work on a project that I can see in this particular application. You have, oh heck, a huge row of houses that just are going to have a garage sticking right out in front of them with 1 tree that's going to die in 3 years.
I do respect and understand what you're saying. I think a little bit in response to that is just because we're agreeing to that specific aspect of 2 trees, and just because we're coming in with 20-foot front setbacks, and that alone does not necessarily mean that every garage or every house built upon that street is going to have a garage that exceeds the front wall of the house. Now, I don't know, and I'm not about to stand up here and make an argument that it's not, but developers, it becomes a marketing deal for them as well. They're not going to do anything to themselves that they think creates a burden or a hardship or something that they can't go market. So every single developer will take those things into consideration in terms of what they're doing. Now, outside of this option, I mean, granted, we could have some curves. This particular subdivision, actually, if you'll go and drive by it and look, you'll see that the streets were cut with the previous preliminary plat.
I agree with that, yeah.
From an engineering design, at this point, we're somewhat locked in terms of trying to incorporate some curves into it, which normally you will see on most of our plats that we have that. In this particular case, we got our hands tied a little bit there. Some of the other options that we get into in terms of staggering building setbacks and stuff, in my own personal opinion, I think that creates a little bit of a monster for us in certain aspects, trying to figure out which lot to do in terms of do we want, because inevitably those builders that are going to end up buying those lots are going to come to us and say, well, let's use a different setback, or and I'm afraid we'd end up at the Board of Adjustments quite frequently. So there's some things, but to just say that we didn't give it any consideration or just carte blanche coming in and ignoring that policy, I don't think is an accurate
No, I didn't mean to imply that you didn't give it a consideration. I mean,
I think there's a couple of points to address. One, and I agree with you, Bob, generally about what you're saying. I note, Kendall, that one of the ameliorating facts for you in this particular case, I guess as a presentation matter, I would have said, here's what I did to get to the point versus one tree. In other words, because I note, to the extent that you were able to, on 158th Street, you did add a curb in that long row of streets. Additionally, your other long row over here where you've got some problems down here, you did add, I mean, there are some curbs. Your plat has, quite frankly, just as a presentation matter, I might have addressed this a little differently, to point out that, gee, I did add a curb in Linear Street here to the extent that I could. One, I did have a plat that was already existing. I mean, there are some things that you actually kind of fell into, frankly, that you could have emphasized that might have made the point a little more clear to us that it wasn't just one tree. And, you know, so, and again, our point with the whole process, as Bob was to say, look, we heard the concerns of the development committee and community about a hard and fast garage front subdivision reg, which we said that's not what we're after right now. So I think there's some aspects to your design here that are quite pleasing to me as part of that committee, and so I just point that out to you.
Point taken.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I raised a question. I'll move approval of the plat.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve item 16. Cast your votes, and that's approved.
Thank you. Item 17 is C-6201, which is the final plat of Rosebriar, Quail Springs, Tract A in Ward 8.
Good afternoon. I'm Chuck Twyble with Smith Roberts, representing the applicant on this. And we've got several of these parcels already developed on, and we've just maxed out how many lot splits we can get, so we want to go ahead and plat this into some viable lots that we can continue to sell. This tract has all the utilities and infrastructure into it to continue with breaking this up, and we don't have to add any sanitary sewer or water lines. All the streets already in place.
Are you in agreement with the TEs?
On one of the TEs, number one, it says NOI must be in place by the time the final plat gets to the Planning Commission. Well, that's where we're at right now. I mean, I think that ought to be modified to the work order or permit of any construction activity. Before we have to submit an NOI. I mean, for what we're doing, we don't have any construction activities, you know, since all the utilities are already in place, there's no additional paving. The only construction is when we sell the lots and they start their site development. Like, you know, Lot 3 is, they're constructing the Denny's right now, and they have their own NOI for that tract. So, yeah, I think we need to modify
number one.
TE number 1.
Okay.
JJ?
You follow, JJ?
If they're not...
The last sentence of TE1.
Yeah, I think you just delete the last sentence of TE1.
Says...
Yeah, in the engineering responses, you know, they say just an NOI for any work order or permits for construction activity.
That's what we would do.
And this requires the NOI for approval of the final plat. Well, this is the final plat.
Yes, that's where we're at right now. So
I think permit or construction activity is fine.
Are you good with that change?
Yes.
Okay. No one has signed up, Commissioners?
Move approval with the modification TE1.
Okay, we have a motion, second, approve item 17 as condition. Cast your votes, and that's approved.
Item 18 is a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Oklahoma City establishing a policy requiring traffic impact analyses for development applications for subdivisions and rezonings.
Commissioners, we had this in, or discussed it in study session. There's no one signed up.
Move approval of the resolution.
We have a motion and second to adopt the resolution. Item 18, cast your votes, and that's approved.
Item 19 is to introduce an amendment to the OKC Plan 2020, establishing a definition, goals, and actions for transportation levels of service, and set for public hearing on March the 25th, 2010. The agenda item has February the 25th. That was an error. The correct date is March the 25th. So I propose that change.
Move to set.
Second. Okay, we have a motion to move and set this item for March 25th. Cast your votes. Item 19 is approved.
And item 20 is a resolution of the Planning Commission determining the proposed Core to Shore urban renewal plan to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan of the city as amended. And Joe Van Bullard is here today to talk to this item.
What did you do to your foot?
It's not my foot, it's my leg.
Oh. Which comes from his back.
Shorter than the other one?
It's getting that way rapidly. I'm Joe Van Bullard with Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Authority, and also this Leslie Batchelor, the General Counsel for the Urban Renewal Authority, is here as well. What we have before the Planning Commission this afternoon is a resolution regarding the proposed Core to Shore Urban Renewal Plan. This is being brought to you by the Urban Renewal Authority, but we've been working with the city very closely with this, and it all comes from the Core to Shore planning process that pretty much was an 18-month process, I believe, something through the calendar year 2007 and the first half of 2008, and it came to the Planning Commission, I believe, in August of 2008. Planning Commission adopted and amended the master comprehensive plan for the city of Oklahoma City, went on to City Council, and they approved it in September of 2008. The Council on February the 9th considered a blight resolution for the Core to Shore area, and the blight study is almost 100% a mirror image of the Core to Shore area. It's also 100, and the blight study is exactly the same boundaries as the urban renewal plan for the Core to Shore area. Council on February the 9th determined that the area was blighted and requested that the Urban Renewal Authority bring back an urban renewal plan for this area. The urban renewal plan went to my board, the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Authority, Tuesday morning at a special meeting. Russell was there. We had a great attendance, probably 40 to 50 people were there. This is the part of a plan where a lot of people are apprehensive because we can't give definitive dates when we're going to have information, and people want information. I mean, but I think hopefully we expressed to them and convinced them that as soon as we get it, we will be emailing, getting in touch with them, and things like that. So in that regard, the urban renewal meeting Tuesday morning was very, very beneficial, I believe, and the Urban Renewal Board approved it and forwarded the urban renewal plan on to the Planning Commission this afternoon. The resolution that you have before you today asks that for you to consider that the urban renewal plan conforms to the comp plan, that it's desirable, and that it be forwarded on to City Council. The basic objectives of the urban renewal plan are want to look at this area as a area that can become a new neighbor and can grow along with and continue the improvements that the original MAPS vote did for downtown. It has a connection to the river with a park system. This area has suffered economic decline over the past several decades. We hope to arrest that situation and turn it around. The main emphasis early in this urban renewal plan will, of course, be the boulevard, which will come through on the existing elevated I-40 today. And I apologize for moving around, but my leg hurts. And then the Central Park. The Central Park was part and parcel of the Court Shore plan as it was being studied. It was also included in the MAPS 3 recent election and was approved there. Can we see that? Basically, this is the acquisition area, which is a critical thing for all the landowners in the urban renewal plan area and the corresponding blight study. But this shows, if you look at the blue outline, that is the boundary that property can be acquired in. If any other property outside of that blue area needs to be acquired, it will come back before Urban Renewal Authority and the City Council. And the next slide. Whoops. Yeah. So, and then this shows the actual park. The Central Park there from the current location of I-40 to the relocated I-40 there in the middle, and then the Promenade Park that is 1 block wide and extends all the way down to the Flycatcher Bridge. The block on either side of the Central Park, the northern part, is there to acquire the property if necessary. The public will want its investment in the Central Park protected and improved on, so that gives us a bit of a border. And then if you look down to the Promenade Park, and the thinking now is maybe the park might be shifted where it straddles Harvey, and then you have a half a block on either side, but that's not laid out. But that is the acquisition area, which I think is the critical thing for the people in that area. And with that, again, it mirrors all of the objectives, all of the recommendations that were in the Court Shore area as far as fostering a new neighborhood. And again, this is the land use there, which is taken directly from the Court Shore plan that was submitted back to this board in August of 2008. It's a very long-term plan. I mean, when we're talking the possibility of 3,000 residential units, that's years. I mean, we're talking 35, 45 years. But at least I think with some private investment in the area, if they see the public dollars that go in and are strategically placed, hopefully that will give the private landowners enough confidence in the area to start the economic reversal of where it's been going to another direction. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Joe Van, looking at the Central Park, and there's, if I'm looking at the roughly southwest quarter of it, I'm looking at land acquisition maps 4 and 4A. A portion that appears to be excluded from the area you intend to currently target for purchase. Can you tell me why? Well, I mean, that would be an answer, but Leslie, do you want to come up and tell us so we get a record?
I didn't understand the question.
Oh.
Maybe my leg's affecting my hearing, too. Oh, the city already owns that. That's the old train station and then the postal facility that the city has already purchased.
Okay.
That's why that jog is there.
That makes sense. It just didn't appear logical if you look at it and don't have the background.
Right. Yeah.
I knew you'd bought those things, but I didn't know where they were in respect to this diagram.
Joe Van, I have an observation and a question. Years and years and years ago, when the city had in front of it the pay or pie plan, and the entire historical downtown of Oklahoma City was razed and hauled away. I mean, great buildings. You know, you were here. They're just great buildings in anticipation of something's going to happen. I don't really know if those same kinds of historical buildings are in this acquisition and clearance and redevelopment, but you have the authority to clear everything. What kind of sensitivity is there among the current Board of Urban Renewal towards saving and restoring what could be historical buildings within this environment? Had that kind of sensitivity been here 30 years ago, when we did have great buildings that were just wiped off the face of the earth, and then no money came in to do anything with them, and we've sat with fallow areas in downtown that makes it look like, you know, Dresden after the war. Is there a sensitivity among the Urban Renewal Board towards preservation of historical structures, even if it might be in the way?
Yes, sir. First, let me say that the Russell staff right now is taking a look at any possible historic structures, not only within the acquisition area, but the entire area. Right. That is ongoing, underway right now. Secondly, on this urban renewal project, we're basically serving as a subcontractor to the city. If the city says...
It won't be your fault.
Pardon?
No.
We're working hand in hand with the city. And I think Russell and everybody else with the city on down will agree that this is a joint effort. Urban Renewal Authority is not going to go out and do anything that the city does not want us to do. I mean, we're taking our marching orders from the city. We're serving as the acquisition relocation part of this. So
the real difference between the 1960s and now is we've demonstrated a willingness to invest in ourselves and put the money forward to do these kinds of projects when we commit to them. I mean, that will and desire simply wasn't there in the 60s. Probably nobody thought of it. And maybe we have Ron Norick to thank for thinking of it to start with in the 1990s. But I think if we embark on Core to Shore, it's the city's intention over this 30 to 40-year time frame to provide what I'll call public seed capital, at least, to try and cause other things to occur, as has happened since 1993.
Mr. Balloon, do you have a guesstimate of how many properties there are within this area that will be targeted for acquisition?
how many properties within the acquisition area?
Mm-hmm. Just how many there are that will be acquired?
When you say, I have a list of like businesses and occupied residential structures. As far as a vacant piece of ground or a boarded up building, I don't have that count. As far as the total number of different parcels, no, I don't. But, there's approximately 23 businesses within the blue area that, from a visual survey, appear to be operational today. There's approximately 17 single-family residences within the blue area.
But you don't have a feel for how many vacant properties there are?
Well, if you look at one block, and you could say, whether that's divided into 2 pieces or 20 pieces, I do not know that right now. I sure don't. We will be hiring a acquisition and relocation services company, and that will be one of their first tasks, is to get all of that plotted when we get them on board. But right now, I couldn't tell you whether they're going to be dealing with 60 people or 600. I simply don't know.
Are there specific plans for what's to be done with the train station?
The ongoing mythology of the train station. The train station is a city property, and is occupied by the city as well as some private consultants who lease space there. The intent in the longer term is that that property would play an integral role in the programming of the park. We are not sure what that is at this point in time. The current park plan does include, I think, about 7,000 to 10,000 square feet of space using that out of the train station for, I think, bike rental and some other kind of community services that support the park. But in the long term, we really don't know. I'd imagine a museum or a community center or an event center, those events just have not yet been programmed. As we move forward with this, we are looking at a completely different structure for the operation of the park system. So the 70 acres that are contained here, also connecting with the Myriad Gardens and other parks in the downtown area, and trying to coordinate what those parks have to offer in terms of events and activities, et cetera. And I just assume that the train station is going to play an integral role in that, but we need to set up that governance structure first before we would consider what that future use of the building is. We are somewhat tied because of a federal grant that was used to rehabilitate the building. It has to maintain a transportation service. In the longer term, again, if we do have a transit system at some point in time that relies on heavy rail, then it's quite possible that the train station could serve as a train station again for passenger rail. But that is very long term. We don't have any indication that we would ever have the funding for that, and of course people would have to start riding trains again for that to work. That's been the big missing piece so far in the discussion on this.
My question really was whether we're committed to preserving the structure.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, it's on the list of...
The short answer is yes.
I have a question, Joe.
I'll take it.
In the acquisition of the businesses that will be acquired, or the properties that has functioning businesses in them, is there a strategy in place, a relocation strategy for the businesses, or is it just strictly acquire and...
No, there's acquisition and relocation. We've worked with the city. Urban Renewal in the past has always used the relocation policies as structured by the federal government because we've always had some federal dollar involvement in there. Basically, it's the federal titles have been stricken from the relocation and acquisition policies, but the actual meaning is still there, and the funding arrangement set up as far as an appraised value for the building, and then the agreed upon relocation expense. If it's residential, it's to equal or better safe sanitary housing of, like things. And businesses, it's to get the business in the new location. If they choose to do that, there's some businesses down there that, if they wanted to say, I want to take the money and then instead of relocating, how much more can you give me? Try to work out a deal like that. But, negotiation is the name of our game. There may be some instance where we have to go through eminent domain, but we certainly will use that only as a very last resort. One of the other things I might mention is that in the buffer, if you could put where it has the green park, and then the buffer area, say the part that's in between the current I-40 and the new I-40, if on either side of that, if there is an owner there who wants to bring forth to the Urban Renewal Authority and the city, as far as I want to use my property, maybe get with the property owner next to me, and we want to build there, they can bring forth their plan, and as long as it meets the guidelines, we're very, very supportive of that in terms of an owner participation agreement, and we hope that would happen.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions of Joe Vann, Commissioners?
Move approval of the resolution.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second to adopt the resolution to suggest this is in conformance with the OKC plan. Cast your votes. And it's approved.
Thank you very much.
Russell?
What about this? That's just discussion? We have one additional item here, which is an ordinance relating to noise and amending Chapter 34, Sections 34-4, 34-5, 34-12 of the ordinance of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2007 by exempting construction activity from the noise control regulations in the downtown business district and including several zoning districts to the table of sound level limits.
Assume this is because of the Devon construction,
I assume
one would
so.
think?
JJ?
That's correct. There's no action required. It's just put in your packet for information.
Oh, okay.
purposes.
All right.
Very good. Then that concludes the items for individual consideration. Planning Commission committees? Planning Commission members, I had a conversation with Kevin George. He is not available on the 11th, as it turns out. He's got a catering project. He would like to reschedule to the 25th of March for lunch before that meeting. Can we do that, Commissioners?
As far as I know.
Okay. If anyone has a problem, let us know, and we will plan to go to the Museum Cafe on March 25th instead of March 11th. 11:30. Well,
I'll get Veronica to do it.
yeah, staff will let us know. Planning Commission members, other comments?
I got a couple of comments. I mentioned at the last meeting a situation on 36th and actually just west or east of Sooner Road, the landfill there, east of Midwest Boulevard, I guess probably a better location. The problem there, and the staff, I got an email the next day that they had contacted the landfill, and subsequently I got an email, I guess it's yesterday afternoon, that they had contacted the EPA. The EPA has had a meeting with the waste management there, and they are already starting to do some improvements to that area, and I appreciate that very much, JJ. That's pretty quick action on that thing, and Mr. Box has got an item that will be probably coming up to the next Planning Commission meeting, and there will be some additional things that we will add, such as we heard from Mr. Thompson this afternoon. And they're already looking at cleaning tires, and they've already started sweeping 36th Street and things like that. So I appreciate that very much. Next thing I brought up in the meeting at I guess it was probably, I don't know where I've ever mentioned it here. I think I mentioned it at the Board of Adjustment. The train station. I took a friend to the train station. Does anybody know where the train station is?
Yeah, been there.
Does everybody know where the train station is? You know, there's several train station people that don't know where it's at. You know, and it's a shame that we don't have access to that thing as far as parking goes. And I don't see why we can't do something. You know, if you go on that train, if you're bringing a passenger on the train, you don't have any place to park really. Especially if there's something going on at the Ford Center. To pull in that parking lot, they want $10. So that's just a comment. The other one, in our meeting prior to the Planning Commission today, I mentioned the heart hospital, the road that goes through that's a private piece of property. And how that got by us, I don't know. We've got public access on the east. We got public access and dedication on the west, but where the heart hospital is, that's private. They could actually put a gate at either side of that and block it off. I mean, they wouldn't do that, I don't think. But that's something we probably need to look into and see what cog slipped on that deal.
Okay. Commissioners, any other comments? Janice?
I was just going to say, one of the things that I was thinking about as we were listening to the amelioration efforts that are underway with respect to the landfill, and I applaud them in their willingness to undertake those efforts. And I have a significant mover of dirt in my ward, and I often wonder about what kinds of controls there are on not only the amount of dirt and so forth that comes sort of out of that site and onto the regular public streets, but also just the amount of, and I confess ignorance on this point, just the amount of wear and tear that occurs to the public streets based on this very long-term, ongoing, and ever-changing, it seems, construction effort. And I wonder if we have a way to monitor that, to recoup that cost, to keep the amount of dirt and dust and everything else down, not only for the people that are in the immediate area, of which there are fewer and fewer as time goes by, but the surrounding areas. It seems to me that there are, significant public costs, just in terms of, more than normal wear and tear to the public infrastructure that results from those kind of long-term construction efforts. And I'm curious to know what, if any, thing we do about it. You don't have to answer that question right now. Yeah, you don't have to answer that question right now. It's something that occurs to me from time to time, especially as I'm driving through, as I have in the last few days, to look at their alley closings and so forth, and look at the condition of the streets, both internal but also external to that area.
I think there's astronomical requirements by the EPA for those things. It's the problem. The problem is monitoring and policing it. That's what the problem is.
I think the difficulty that Janice is talking about is, the wear and tear on the roads. And, you can, the other stuff, yes, it is regulated, and it's a matter of how well it's monitored. But the difficulty with the other one would be, that wouldn't be the only use that would generate heavy trucks that would provide wear and tear on the road. We could make the argument for the Hobby Lobby headquarters over there in Western Heights, for example. It's kind of a it's a selective use kind of thing, and I don't know how we would do it. Could put heavier impact fees on industrial land. It's a difficult thing. I don't know if any other municipalities have found a solution for that. Good point.
Mike.
I have just one request, and this is sometime in the future. We get a consistent. One of the things that we see as much as anything are ABC type applications, and it might be helpful to me. And we complain about the status of the state laws. We complain about the fact that they run with the land. We say, well, it's only 1, 2, 3. They're going to do A, B, C, D, and E. I think it's time, at least for me, to get maybe just a brief overview of exactly what we're talking about, what the distance from the land, maybe from legal and the planning department. I don't need a long one. I just need kind of the bullet, so I've got it in my head, because we see a consistent number of these applications, and some of the considerations maybe that we talk about are valid, maybe they're not valid, maybe, but if I could get probably at one of our study sessions just a brief kind of overview, I think it would be helpful to me to kind of frame some of the difference between a 1, a 2, and a 3, or a 2 and a 3, whatever. And so that might be helpful for me. Again, I don't want it to be a long, drawn-out process, but I think it would help all of us, quite frankly, to kind of get those a little better framed in our mind when they come up, because we see one of those historically just about every darn meeting. And so, anyway, that's just a request. Sometime, it's not a fire drill.
Nick? Nothing? Planning Department?
The only thing I'd add is, relative to the Urban Renewal Plan, Coeur d'Alene, we do have the Urban Land Institute coming in this weekend, and they'll be here all next week, undertaking a fairly intensive assessment of the plan in terms of several different questions that we've asked, but we're trying to get basically validation of a number of the plan recommendations and some advice from them in regarding priority of development and what we should aim for in terms of development adjacent to the park, et cetera. And this is all part of our more aggressive approach to economic development in MAPS 3 versus MAPS 1 and 2. MAPS 1 and 2 were essentially construction projects, and there really wasn't a lot beyond that. But this time we understand the context and the leveraging capacity of each of these projects, and we want to make sure that we maximize that. So that will be an important part of the implementation of MAPS 3 program. A lot of those elements will not be funded through MAPS 3, but it is important that we pay more attention to maximizing the taxpayers' return on their money. And I think it's a very good approach, and I wish we had more staff to do it.
Development Services? Municipal Counselor's Office? No citizens to be heard other than ourselves. Any other business? A motion to adjourn? We're adjourned. Thank you all.